You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for a music lover. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. Welcome to episode 27 of Tapestry. Today's guests are the wonderful gentlemen from the Tea Club, a progressive rock band from New Jersey. We delved into topics such as the reasons behind their departure in style on their latest album, from bombastic progressive rock to a more delicate and emotional offering, how most of the band has been touched in some way by video game music, and the role of and importance of fans in an organic artistic community. Here's a bit of their song Say Yes from the latest album, If When. I do believe that's how it'll be. Rise from your grave as if out of a dream. You will be the one escaping through the fire, excavating me. Say yes. Say yes. I had 4 of the 5 band members here, so it was just easiest to start this interview by getting everyone to tell me their names so you can recognize their voices.
I'll start. I'm
Okay.
Pat.
Okay, I'm
This
Jamie.
This is Joe Dorsey.
Jamie.
Dan Monda.
That one's pretty clear. Clear.
Yeah, and then, I forget, is other Dan here?
He is not.
I
He is
like
not,
how
okay.
other Dan. That's
Other
right.
Yeah,
Dan.
other Dan.
How do you like that,
I'm just
It's the
highlighting
first time in my life.
Ever.
I'm usually
Even
the other Monda, the other Dan.
that.
Finally.
Is it easier, actually, Dan Monda, if I refer to you as Monda, like for this interview, if I need to say something about your name? Dan
Sure.
McGowan isn't here, but I wasn't sure if that would be easier.
That would be great. Monda.
Monda. Okay. So we have
Monda.
Pat, Joe, Jamie, and Monda.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Gotcha. Okay. So finally, I think I can start this interview officially. So,
And can you just state your name and your voice? Because you sound very much like our keyboardist, Joe Dorsey.
All
my
right.
name's
well,
Kelly. I
we
host
go.
the Tapestry Music
Okay.
Podcast. No. Okay. So I have 4 out of the 5 members of the Tea Club with me this evening, and they're all probably sitting in different rooms apart from each other with headphones on. But yeah, across the great state of Pennsylvania, you guys are in what appears to be Barrington, New Jersey. Is that correct?
Well, so we're technically in West Deptford, New Jersey right now.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
is that where your rehearsal space is?
Yes. For tonight.
Gotcha.
Yes.
For tonight. Okay. Well, so thank you guys for being here. Thank you for having this interview happen, and I'm excited to pick your brains. So for everybody listening, this might end up being a train wreck. I hope it won't be, but this is 4 people, so I'm going to do my best to manage questions and try not to let everything derail, but we'll just see how this goes. So again, thank you guys for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us. Really excited.
You're
Very happy to
welcome.
do this.
I think the easiest way to start this in general with so many people is, I'm going to ask you to do this again, sorry, but I'm going to go down the list and just have you guys say your name, and then could you also tell me what instruments you play, and then I'll
Yeah.
get into individual questions.
Yeah.
So Pat, why don't you go first?
I'll start. So this is Pat McGowan, and I play the guitar and sing.
What about Joe?
This is Joe Dorsey, and I play the keys.
Okay, Jamie,
This is Jamie, and I play bass.
and then Monda.
This is Dan Monda, and I play
One of
drums. That's it. I just play drums.
The drums.
Question mark.
Perfect.
Was that a
Drums?
question?
Drums? Well, I play the drums as well.
Mhm.
So, all right, so the Tea Club. Why don't each of you guys start to tell me just a little bit about how you all came to get to know each other, but how each one of you came into becoming a musician, where your journeys kind of started.
Good question.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest, so I'm just going to pull rank here, and I'm going to start. my brother and I, Dan, who is not on this call unfortunately, but we kind of started the band together when we were pretty young. Dan, I think, might have been 16 when we started playing music together. And we actually, I was thinking about this the other day. We met Jamie, our bass player, we put out a Craigslist ad.
That's like the second or third band I've interviewed that's found most of the people from Craigslist. It works.
Yeah, and he
Sometimes.
just, do you remember that, Jamie? You just like walked up to our house.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, man.
Yeah.
It was cool. He had emailed us, and he seemed like a pretty cool guy, and we gave him a little bit of homework. We gave him a song to work on. We were looking for a new bass player at the time, and he. I'm telling you, why am I telling your story, Jamie?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm
That's
terrible.
weird.
All right,
I'm like,
sorry.
now what am I going to say?
All right, not only am I going to be the only one who speaks, but I'm also going to speak for everyone and tell everyone's story. All right. Yeah, so Dan and I, my brother and I, we started playing together when we were teenagers, and we kind of just sort of clicked, and we had a lot of fun doing it. We felt like we were onto something, and we kept doing it, and I think we kept getting better at it. We had a couple bands early on before the T Club, but only for maybe about a year or two. We had another band called Book of Thoughts. That was the band that was right before the T Club. It consisted mostly of members who would become the T Club.
So pre-T Club, T Club.
Pre-T Club, T Club. Yeah, we've had kind of a lot of personnel changes over the years. So yeah, Book of Thoughts was the band that my brother and I had right before T Club. There were a couple songs that we wrote for Book of Thoughts that eventually became T Club songs, like The Moon. There's a song on our first album called The Moon, and that was a Book of Thoughts song. And then we met. We've had this like interesting pool of musicians that we've been working with over the years, and that's how we came across Jamie and Joe and Dan. But I'm not going to tell their story like I was doing for Jamie. So maybe I'm just going to stop.
Real quick though, Pat, how old is your brother? What's the age difference between you guys?
We're about 3 years apart, just under 3 years apart. I'm the older one, so I was. Dan wanted to be a comic book artist when he was a kid. We actually both did, but I realized that I kind of sucked at it, so I gave up. But Dan was really good and is really good at it, and he was still kind of like making comics when we were 14, 15, and I had sort of moved on to music, and I kind of I tried to coerce him into giving up or putting on hold his dreams of comic book stardom in favor of playing music with me. So we were about I was like 18, I guess 19, and Dan was 15 or 16, and I sort of managed to convince him to play with me. And first instrument he played was the bass, actually. He was like our first bass player.
You didn't find him on Craigslist, so
no,
it doesn't count.
Didn't. Nope. Craigslist bass player.
Well, I guess Jamie can tell his side of the story, right?
Sure. So this is.
Yeah, I'll allow it, Jamie. Go ahead.
Thanks, Pat. Jamie, Craigslist bass player. Dan, is there a chance you could turn your mic off for a second? Sorry, I'm getting myself immediately talking.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's better.
We'll just keep doing that. When you go, I'll turn mine off. Okay. So, yes, I mean, I don't know. Music's always been a big part of my life from really young. I did, I did 8 years of violin in school. That was sort of, I mean, that was the real sort of discipline of music in my life. And violin is constant battle with intonation that never ends. So yeah, I mean, you really have to feel it. So I don't know, I started playing guitar probably at like 14 and playing in some bands in high school with some of my best friends. And I actually got into bass pretty late. Honestly, I didn't even have a bass until I was probably like 18. But yeah, I mean, I just, I don't even remember why I was searching Craigslist. I was kind of new to the Philadelphia area when that was happening, and just needed to kind of reset and find some new people to play with. So I think that was right after Quickly was recorded and not released yet. So after a little bit of back and forth with Pat, he leaked a couple tracks to me. And I was super excited as soon as I heard it because it was super fucking weird and really interesting. And like immediately I knew it was going to be challenging in a good way, you know, just in terms of everything about it, really how dynamic it was, how different the sort of chord progressions were than what I was used to just kind of walking into with new groups of folks. So yeah, that was great. Pat, I wanted to share the thing you told me about when you first met me, which was a little while after I met Pat. Pat said that he he expected me to be like walking in like flip flops and a Sublime t-shirt. just from phone conversations we'd had.
That's what all bass players wear at all times.
I took it as a compliment though, because it's just very kind of laid back image.
Preferably with like a tie-dye Sublime shirt with cargo shorts.
Definitely mustard stains.
Yeah,
like an Arizona iced tea in your hand, like that. Okay.
It's an honor to give off that vibe, though.
Did someone say mustard stains?
Oh, thanks, Pat.
I'm such an asshole for saying that to you. I'm sorry. I don't even know why.
But
thank
really
God
feeling the love in the room here.
Yeah, but so when was that? 2012. So it's been like almost 7 years. 7 years.
Yeah.
That I've been doing this and got to do grappling with them, and of course If When, and it's been fun, and it's been work, and it's definitely growing. Everyone has grown a lot, and it's great to be doing it.
Excellent. I'm gonna, I guess, I kind of have you guys in an order on my notes, so sorry, Mondo, you're gonna be last, I guess.
Of importance. That's order of importance.
There it is.
Put that out there.
Joe,
back.
what about you?
Yeah.
Love you, Dan. Love you, buddy.
Well, I was the next one after Jamie to join in this current lineup, and that was around 2014. But before all that, when I was little in elementary school, I was the disciplined piano kid. So I did the 10 years of classical piano lessons. So I always had like a lot of music theory in my background, but in high school, I kind of stopped doing the classical piano thing and joined started my own band called Until Sunrise and played guitar in that for a while. And then when I got to college, I joined a metal band actually. And it was around 2012-ish when I had discovered the T Club online, and I fell in love with Quickly. And the first song on that album, Fire Bears, became one of my favorite songs of the year. So I listened to it obsessively, and at the time my bandmates were even like annoyed, like, dude, you pay more attention to this other band than you're paying attention. But so anyway, so around that time I picked back up instead of doing piano, I just took those piano skills and applied them towards synths and other keyboards, and have since around 2012 really started developing my ear for like sound design and synthesizers and sequencing and that sort of stuff. I did some solo electronic stuff in between 2012, 2013. And then long story short, and how I joined the Tea Club, because when I was in college, I was living in Tennessee. And after I discovered the Tea Club, I got a hold of Dan McGowan on Facebook and just said, I love the band. I'd love to book you guys a show. You know, we're always putting together shows, like grungy house shows and stuff in Tennessee. And in 2013, during the first, it was the Science Club tour. So it was when the Tea Club and Thank You Scientists first.
Oh, that's how I discovered you guys, actually. I saw you on that tour.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So it was at that exact time when I booked those guys a show in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and it was a blast to finally get to see them play live. And then fast forward about a year, I was graduating college, and I moved back up to Maryland, where I live now. And I was looking for bands to play with, and because I was really upset that I had to quit the metal band that I was in, but so I was looking for another band to play with, and so I got a hold of Tom Monda and asked, hey, I knew they didn't have a keyboard player, so I said, hey, you guys need a keyboard player, and he said, I'll get back to you, whatever. A few months, or it was like a week later, he said, we're not looking for a keyboard player, but we'll let you know if anyone's interested. And lo and behold, the next day, Dan McGowan calls up Tom and says, hey, we're looking for a keyboard player. And so it was just one of these weird one of those weird moments of timing. And so I went to go try out, and Pat and Dan made me learn Fire Bears by ear, which I later found out they actually cheat music for, but they didn't give it to me.
This is your test.
It was about 2 weeks of trial and error with learning that song. But a few months later,
that was totally intentional, Joe, by the way.
I know. And then I went in and did some studio work on Grappling. We ended up using a lot of different content on Grappling, but I still got to sit in on the studio sessions and become part of that process. And then, then we went to do If When, and, it's been a hell of a ride, as cheesy as that sounds, but it's been a lot of fun.
That's so crazy that you guys are so closely linked with Thank You Scientist. I just interviewed them, and I knew you toured together, but you're also geographically very close, but I just, I didn't know how deep that connection ran, though I suppose when you're making the kind of music you guys do, it's, it's not mainstream stuff. There's only so many progressive rock bands in New Jersey, Philly, that sort of thing, and I'm sure you all bump into each other, so that is interesting. So last but not least, Mr. Dan Monda.
Well, where to begin with the life of Dan Monda? There's so many topics we can touch upon. But if we must choose...
you can do this the whole time.
I am. No, probably when I was a ute. My brother and I, 2 utes, we used to... I still am very into, but we used to be very into Sega Genesis.
Ah, hell yeah.
And there's this one game, Toe Jam and Earl, and it had the funkiest bass in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to play funk bass for Toe Jam and Earl. And
I've never heard this story.
I'm still waiting for it. I feel like the Tea Club's a good stepping stone to And that's kind of what really got me hooked on very rhythmic stuff. And I'm just always tapping. And then my parents got me a drum set. And then I just started playing drums. And then how did I meet the Tea Club? Oh, so my brother Thomas and Thank You Scientist showed me the Tea Club. I'm like, oh, these guys are really cool. And then he goes, oh, yeah, the guitar player Dan is sleeping over our house today. I'm like, oh.
Here we go.
And,
I did not know that until now, that Tom was your brother. I figured the last name was the same, and that's why, but thank you for putting that out there.
It's officially out.
It's out. It's out. The cat's. What is the expression? The cat's out of the toilet. The wind is out of the barn. What's the word? Yep. What's the phrase? I was close, right?
You do you, Dan.
I will do me. So Dan McGowan slept over our house, and we just played Sega Genesis games all night. I think we beat Captain America and the Avengers. It was a magical evening. And I think that just forged a lifelong bond between the two of us. And I've always been in the back of his mind since then. And we would always, we would see each other over the years, and we would just talk about old video games. And then one day, he just says, "Hey, we need a drummer." And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. I'll do it." And then, like a day later, I saw Pat McGowan and Dan McGowan and Jamie Wolf at a barbecue, and Pat pulled me aside, and he had a really long, awkward conversation with me.
Is it awkward? Come on.
About the Tea Club, and he really did not do a good job selling it. He goes, "All right, so listen, you've gone through a lot of drummers. We kick out members like you wouldn't believe."
All right.
I'm exaggerating, but yeah. So that's kind of how I joined the Tea Club. I still don't really know if I'm in the Tea Club. It was never really. But when I joined, it was 2000. I joined like 2 days after Joe Dorsey. I think it was like very close, and it was literally like the day after they recorded drums for Grappling. So I missed the Grappling train, but I was there for If When.
You were performing it though, weren't you, on that Science Club tour?
No, so Science Club tour was a little earlier. I performed it on the second Thank You Scientist tour, which was 2017, 16, I think.
16,
with
yeah.
Moontooth. With Moontooth.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. That is the tour that I saw you guys on, because I remember I bought Grappling from one of you. It was the show in Lakewood, Ohio at Mahal's, which was the bowling alley. Crazy. The crazy shiny curtain behind it, and the merch guy was dressed like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was such an amazing show. That was so
a fun night.
Little fun aside,
cool.
all the bands complained so much about the sound guy at that show.
Yeah, because he sucked.
The manager came out and fired the sound guy.
Oh my God!
Everybody at the end of the night.
I am so happy you told me that, because that has been in my mind. Not happy for him, but like happy in like a vindictive kind of like, you bastard, because Sal from Thank You Scientist had to do his entire freaking set singing into the megaphone in the middle of the floor, like in the middle of the crowd, which was awesome as a fan, but I just couldn't imagine what he was going through as a performer while the sound guy is just dicking off in the back, not doing anything right. And I'm like, this guy sucks. What's happening? Well, I hope sound guy has found a new calling in life, or perhaps has just moved on to a venue with lower standards. But
I don't think he was. That guy was not prepared for us. I think
any of the bands there.
I think that venue is wasn't accustomed to having, prog bands with keyboard rigs and and brass sections and stuff. And so I remember seeing him when we were pulling up. He kind of had this sort of deer in the headlights look on his, and he was like, "Oh my gosh,
identity.
What am I getting into?"
Yeah, like oh man, I get the feeling that he just was, just like wasn't told about what he was getting into,
Right.
That's
Scientist did a 2-hour sound check before that show too, which is crazy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I honestly still think about that show sometimes, and I've been to hundreds of shows, and that is still one of my favorite. I think just
cool.
Start to finish, like having you guys there. To me, I love discovering a new band live. I had not known about you guys at the time, and it's just always cool when you allow your first impression to be a live one, and you killed it. So that was great. That was really exciting and fun. But going back to what you said about the sound guy being unprepared, like tackling everything you guys bring to the table. I had asked Tom this actually in the Thank You Scientist interview. Like, do you find it difficult to kind of, I guess, pitch, because you guys are sort of wacky and out there, and you have all these different instruments and just unusual concepts, and how does that fit into marketing the Tea Club, and do you find that it brings any particular set of challenges?
It's an interesting one. There's a lot in that.
It's a loaded question, man.
We thought this was going to be an easy interview. Kelly.
You're really pressuring
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Is this a hit piece? What's going on here?
No, don't worry. I'll ask you like what your favorite color is 20 minutes from now.
That's a sore subject because I'm colorblind.
He is.
Well, I'll take a stab at this, and guys, feel free to interrupt me because I'll just keep going and going. We have the band has kind of struggled to find that way, ability to sort of zone in on a particular genre, just because we kind of the music. I hate to sound kind of pretentious, but it's kind of tough to classify,
Yeah.
It's not really like classically prog or metal or indie or any of those things, although it kind of draws from all that stuff. So we have kind of found it challenging to, find the place where we think that we fit the best and invest the most amount of time into those areas. We even kind of saw this new album, If When, as just as it was being made, it was becoming pretty clear that we were even expanding more upon that trait of the band, which is very exciting, but also opens up a whole new sort of can of worms, as like, well, where do you promote this to,
Right.
And so
do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Do you mind if I jump in? I just wanted to, just a side note, thinking about marketing the band, when I first joined, I felt like one of the biggest things that either the T Club could do as a band is I felt like when I was listening to them in 2012, I was thinking to myself, this is one of the greatest records I've ever found, but I found it by accident. And what I thought the T Club could do better was to market itself better. But as I was in the band, what I started to realize is because of all the lineup changes over the years and the constant reinventing, because to understand how we work as a band is almost every album cycle is there's a complete revolution that sort of happens where the band re-identifies itself and kind of starts over again, if that sounds crazy or not, but we kind of is like a constant death rebirth cycle. And I finally feel like this latest record, we've had enough of a foundation since Grappling came out, since we're the same lineup, and since we've had time to kind of build upon this new one and have a chance to tour significantly for the first time in 2016, and now with all these opportunities coming up, I feel like we've finally, as a group, found our market and are developing that sort of now as this album is being released. But that's my 2 cents on that.
I would have to agree with that death rebirth thing too, because I'll be completely honest, when I heard If When, I was just like, oh cool, so this is going to be Grappling but better, and it doesn't sound anything like Grappling to me. It's just it's a total departure, I think, in the emotion and the pacing and just the overall feel. And at first I'm like, whoa, like this isn't even the T Club that I know. And then I think, no, but that's the beauty of it, is that they're not just putting out the same thing every single album. They're trying something raw and super different, but really effective. That's my 2 cents, I guess.
I could weigh in here and say I kind of just had the realization as Joe was saying it, to be totally honest. But yeah, I mean, it feels really good. I'm really excited to play a bunch more shows in the future with the same people. And I think even though something that the T Club has done when you look at the full discography is that every album does seem to be a total sort of new approach from the ground up. The new one feels like it's moved into some places that none of them have gone, and I think that's part of having a really good group with great chemistry. And I feel like I don't know, it just feels really good, and looking forward to hitting the road again with these guys.
Without cutting off anything that Pat wanted to finish, I suppose that's a good time to ask kind of how do you guys work together, and how does that chemistry allow you to write albums that are so immersive and complex without feeling, everything just feels like it's in the right place for the right reason, but your music is complex and crazy. So it always blows my mind that 5 people can get in a room and write something just, insane. How do you do it?
Well, we draw a pentagram on the ground. There's blood involved, and no. Well, we have. I'll speak about if when. Dan and I usually come up with, just some chords. It's not, it's really not a like a brilliant thing, I guess, or like some astonishing thing. I'll come up with a chord progression, or Dan will have a song, and he'll come to me, or I'll go to him, and we'll take a few hours and sit down in the rehearsal space or wherever we might be, and just start playing and say, here, I've been working on this, I got this idea, and then like for instance, the song "If I Mean When" on the new album. I really love that song, and that song has like a lot of specialness to it for me, partly because of the way it was written. I had just come home from work. It was late one night. I remember it was like in November or late October or something. So it was like that kind of mystical time of year,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best time of year.
It was probably windy and rainy and cold, and I got home and it was kind of late, and I walked into the house that Dan and I were living in together at the time, and he's in the band room, and I walk in and he's like, "Yo, I just wrote this song. I want you to hear it." And I was like in the midst of all kinds of turmoil at that point in my life, and it was it was like the last thing I was thinking about was like T Club music at that moment, and and I sat down and Dan starts playing this. He just starts playing the song, it just was really special to me, and like within the first 30 seconds or so, like the hair on like my arms and like like they just kind of, you get that goosebump feeling, like whoa, something's going on here, and then he, by the end of the song, I was actually in tears, I was just really moved by it. And then I remember he kind of looked at me, he's like, "What do you think, man?" And I just like immediately picked up the guitar and I was like, "Play it again,"
Huh.
and he started playing it again, and I just kind of a lot of the content that has ended up on the album, my parts at least, they were like the first or second thing I played,
Oh wow.
It was that was kind of different for us, Another piece to this would be the producers that we've worked with. We've been like really blessed to have worked with 2 really, really, really talented producers. The first four records were produced by Tim Gillis, and he is just the best, and we learned so much from him. Things changed, and we ended up going with Jeff Adderman as producer with this new album. He has some association with Tim, which was nice because we kind of had somewhat of a familial relationship with Tim and with his studio, Big Blue Meanie, in Jersey City, which is no longer there. But
and he's the one who's worked with like Anthrax, Taking Back Sunday, all those like totally non-T Club like bands. Okay.
I remember. Do you know the band Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when we were making our first album at Big Blue Meanie, we had like some of the Thursday guys were like hanging out in the control room, and like we were convinced that they stole some of our material for their follow-up album. We were convinced, but yeah, it was like totally different. But so the new producer, our new producer Jeff, I don't know, I think he saw something. kind of like what Joe and Jamie were talking about. I think he saw an aspect of the band that hadn't really gotten a ton of attention over the years and on the previous albums. I think he was kind of looking for a new approach for us, you know, and he sort of zeroed in on that song in particular, If I Mean When. It was just kind of that song really informed a lot of what the record became, you know, because I remember we wrote, I mean, there are like probably half a dozen versions of that song. And there's definitely a version of it that's like 8 minutes long, and it's got
the bridge, the fucking bridge.
Yeah, it's like time signature changes, and it's like a whole elaborate instrumental thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember we demoed it, you know, because I honestly, to be totally honest, I remember going back to that blustery autumnal night when the song was written. Dan and I made a demo recording of it, just like right there, you know, use his phone or something, and we just played it. And we sent that to the band, and we ended up sending that to the producer, Jeff. And I remember thinking like, well, we can't just do this, can we? Like, we can't, like, that's really cool, but like, that's not what we do, is it?
It's very stripped back.
Yeah. So, you know, we started toying around with it, you know, kind of experimenting with it, and yeah, we had this. We ended up with like what we called the prog version of If I Mean When, which is cool, you know, it's cool. And I remember we showed it to our producer Jeff, and he listened to it, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's cool. It's got some really cool stuff, but I don't know, man. That first version, I don't think it's better, you know. I think that first version's actually better, you know." And that was kind of something that we kept coming back to was, okay, well, if we're going to spend some time sort of working these songs, are we making them better? You know?
Right. Like having the discretion to do that is, I think, a sign of maturity in songwriting.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were kind of flexing our muscles with that, you know, and we would bring these, you know, Dan and I would bring this stuff to Joe and to Jamie and to Dan. Yeah, you know, in the rehearsal room, and you know, Jamie and I got together several times working on stuff, and we were, you know, Jeff, I think, kind of was sort of, he was, it seemed like he was trying to steer the boat in this direction, so to speak, you know, and so we were sort of working under this assumption or this like. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking. But it like this was our motto for this album was, you know, don't overdo it. You know,
Right.
Even Creature, which is the longest song we've ever done by far, by like 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
But even with Creature, which originally started out as an 8-minute long song, and it was essentially, if you guys don't mind me spoiling it, we played it live once, but it was like the first 3 minutes of the song, a few minutes from towards the end, and then the very end, and that was the whole song. And I remember we had like 10 or 12 of all these little other ideas, but they weren't songs. They were just chord, like Pat was saying at the very beginning of when you asked this question, we just had these chord progressions. And we ended up constructing Creature as you know it now. Well, not as you know it now, an even longer version of Creature. That was pushing
the version
30.
That's on the album is like the minimalist version of Creature.
The minimalist 25-minute long prog epic.
27 minute long.
Oh.
Yeah. So even Creature was a song that we were trying to be conservative up front with, even though it was this epic track. We just felt like there's this big chorus at the end of Creature that's revisited. So there's a chorus at the beginning of the song, and then towards the very end of the song, it's reprised in this really epic kind of emotional fashion. And we just felt like it was too epic in the version it was that almost, well, no, not dial it back. We just felt like it needed more setup. So we started to add a little more, and then we added a little more. And then before you knew it, we had this ridiculous song. And we ended up, I'll let Pat respond to this because I know he had some emotions about
adamantly against the long version. You know, like we had written Fire Bears from the album quickly, and that Fire Bears is like almost 20 minutes long. And I remember thinking like, I'm never going to write a song that long again. You know, like it was like we did it. It's cool. I love it, but I don't think I think we did it great, and I don't think we need to do it again. You know. And so I was adamantly against this long song and Dan, my brother, Dan McGowan, and Joe, they were like really pushing for this long version. And I was just like really, you know, staying hard to this. No, we're not doing it. And they were trying to convince me, you know, and I just wasn't hearing it. But there was one rehearsal where they had, we had this whiteboard in the rehearsal room, which was Jamie's idea, by the way. We had this whiteboard in the rehearsal room, and they had, again, I was coming back from something, and Joe and Dan had written out the journey of Creature. You know,
like the actual map, kind of.
Yeah, like the map, like the musical map of Creature. And there were like little, you know, in addition to the musical map, so to speak, there were like these emotional moments too, you know, like this is the part where this happens, and this is the part where you might feel that, you know, and I saw that and I was like, oh damn, they're right.
Yeah, but
no.
even
no.
Creature at one point was longer than it appears on the album, and our producer helped us rein it in so it didn't become over the top. And you know, I think we succeeded in that, but that's up to the listeners.
It wasn't that much longer. It was maybe like a minute longer. Like some sections were just repeated, I think. Right? I don't think there's any real content we removed.
Well, back when we were
was.
first put the demo together in Audacity, it was ridiculous, and then we edited it down.
Yeah, we have like this 30-minute song, or 30. I think it's 32 minutes. We have like this 32-minute file from all that Dan made on Audacity, and it's like hilarious because he like took all these weird little clips of demos. That
like home demos.
Yeah, they're like home demos, and he like sped them up and like tried to change the key of certain ones, and you know what I mean. And it's impossible if you listen to it now. It's just, I mean, even when we were first listening to it, he was like, "Listen, just try to get the big picture of it." You know, yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but here's, you know, Dan had a vision for it. You know, Dan and Joe really had a vision for it. And there were entire sections that we ended up cutting out. We even tried one of the sections that we cut from Creature was one of the sections that we put into the quote unquote prog version of If I Mean When. We were like had this thing that we kept places to use.
Oh shit.
I love that you guys are talking about a song on your single album that's literally longer than some people's entire albums. And it's gone through all these transformations and stuff.
Yeah, I would love to say that we're like Mozart and we just hear it, you know, and we write it down and there it is. But no, there's a lot of scribbling and erasing. But one of the things, I just want to throw this out there. One of the things that we like, I think the band has really tried to focus on from day one, but I felt like we really, really seem to have gotten right with this last one, or just done really well. That's a better way to put it. Was kind of like marrying this, like the heart and the mind, you know, and really when the mind started to take over too much, you know, we tried to pull it back and give, you know, and not suffocate the emotion, you know. We were really just trying to really emote with the music, you know. Try to yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, you're good. Well, there's the kind of the age-old, especially in the prog world, as I'm sure you know, there's always the age-old debate about, well, it's not emotional if it's technically complex, you know, or vice versa. Well, that's too simple to be intelligent or whatever. And the heart versus mind thing is a great way to put it. I just feel like, and after reading some reviews, and, you know, you guys were in Prog Magazine, couple, you know, very, very good reviews of If When. But a lot of people have kind of said this new approach to your songwriting is so sincere. It has to come from some place of deep, heartfelt something happening. So what happened between Grappling and If When that led to such an emotional shift in your music? Because, you know, for those out there who are unfamiliar with the T Club, before this interview, to me, Grappling is my favorite album from you guys, and I love it because it's just so freaking weird. Like, just centipede crawling up my arm, like just weird stuff. It's just so strange, and it's so quirky and fun. And then to hear you guys do something so different and stripped back and heartfelt, I'm like, what happened? Are they okay? What happened to them?
I think we're okay.
Good. Okay, hanging in there. It sounds like a lot of life happened for all of you that led to the creation of an album like this.
Yeah, for sure. I could weigh in maybe a little here.
Please.
Yeah, I mean, totally. There's a lot has happened in everyone's lives, and I think there's always life is always happening. But having gone through the making of Grappling and the making of If When, there are some pretty huge differences. I feel like, Pat, you're nailing something when you were talking about emotion, and in the context of like going back to what you were saying earlier, of like the sort of this concept of like we were connecting with everyone. I think was connecting with the sort of basic skeleton of the song, the progression, the melodies, and just being a little kind of taking this approach of if it's not making it better, don't do it.
Yeah.
But then what does that mean, like emotionally, and really being in tune with that, not overcooking things. Mm-hmm. I think is a good way to put it. And I do love Grappling, but I mean there were a lot of differences. But one huge difference was, to be totally honest, like making Grappling was like tumultuous in a lot of respects, and also like we were really like trying crazy things and putting a lot of content out there, and probably even more revisions too, like more first draft, second draft, third draft, over and over and over. And it kind of like culminated in like when we were kind of finishing the album and wrapping it up, like we were like sleep deprived and insane. Like we were like totally, Pat, we had like just like the weirdest times.
You had become Dr. Abraham.
Yeah. And so as much as I don't regret that experience at all and how awesome it was, I think we were like, all right, let's do it differently. And let's do it differently next time. And I think in my opinion, the beginning sort of starting point of the songs are so I just think the songwritership, so to say, has grown so much that it feels at moments it feels like more of a disservice to just do something crazy all over it. You know what I mean? I collaborate with so many people. Like collaboration's tricky, and if you imagine like doing a big group drawing together, like you got to be careful not to scribble all over someone's thing, and so being on the same page of what we're trying to convey emotionally, I think is huge, and I think we did a good job on that this time.
So I was just going to say, I wanted to point out too lyrically, and I don't want to speak for Dan McGowan because he's not here, but I think the headspace for Grappling and then the headspace for If When, like we were making, I don't want to say we were making different records, but for Grappling, I remember when I first joined the band and I was hanging out with Pat and Dan, and they were explaining to me what Grappling was about and the stories behind the different songs, and they came up with this whole world. Like they did this world building where they built this city that Dr. Abraham was involved in, and then there's the magnet, which is, you've got the pilgrim and the centipedes and the liquid light and all the fantastical elements of Grappling. Was this kind of fantastic sort of story that was put onto these new songs that they had written for Grappling. Whereas I think we're definitely not burnt out on the fantastical stuff, but the T Club has from the beginning had approached lyrics from a storytelling perspective, a la Genesis kind of approach, And I just think this time we wanted to, and I think you can even tell on the difference in artwork, in my opinion. You know, you look at the album covers and the one If When has the human figure on it, as opposed to the rest of the other album covers depicts more fantastical imagery. And I think it's just one of these stylistic changes this time around where we decided to be a lot more personable and more introspective rather than creating this expressionist, fantastical world with our music. So again, I don't think it was a conscious decision as much as a natural movement from doing 4 albums of that sort of fantastical lyricism.
Yeah, I think that's well said. There's a certain human element to If When that the other albums maybe don't have so much of. And I was just reading some reviews and trying to collect my thoughts after listening, and you know, the themes I kept seeing other people describe this album as having are a lot more of just these basic human feelings like loss, cynicism, death, hopelessness, just things that everybody goes through at some point in their life, and to be able to express that in music is a really beautiful thing. And I have really grown to appreciate that it is so totally different than everything else you guys have done.
Well, the interesting that's a really nice thing to say, Kelly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Something that just popped in my head when you were talking was that Dan and I, from the beginning, we have injected all of those things into the music and into the lyrics. You know, like even though Grappling is about this kind of bizarre mythological world that we created, at the heart of it, it's about, the intent was that it was about these paradoxes of extremes, and what happens when the extremes don't work, what happens when tragedy comes in, and what happens when you find out that things are gray, like kind of these what we were hoping for with these sort of universal themes that we tried to kind of use these fantastical stories to tell. I personally love that kind of fiction, that uses something like science fiction or fantasy or something that somebody might think is silly, but it's actually telling like a really deep story, very significant story of like human emotion, and so we had kind of all of the Tea Club albums lyrically was, we were kind of exploring all that stuff, but we were using those sort of fantastical elements to do it, and I loved it, and I think it's all awesome, and I'm incredibly proud of all of those albums that we've made, and the approaches that we took, and there was just there was an element of, well, can we do something different, and can we be brave enough to do something this different and still do it artfully, that was sort of a new challenge, was like, yeah, can we write a song like If I Mean When and Sinking Ship, and yeah, If When has like 5 chords, like that's kind of a crazy idea for us, and but can we make it artfully and musically? Is it an artistic piece of like real music? And it turned out that in some ways that's actually way harder than writing a 28-minute long song.
I've brought that up on previous interviews, how people love to dump on, especially people who listen to stuff that we all listen to, which is usually described as more of a highbrow sort of thing. You write a successful pop song. Do it. Go ahead and do it. See how easy it is. It's not easy at all. Totally. And I think in this is kind of like circling back to my initial question about how do you market yourselves, but in this world of easy access to everything, and where a lot of people are so bound to subgenres and definitions and labels, they won't even give something a shot if it's not, well, that's not prog rock, I won't listen to it. That's not pop, I won't listen to it. And to be able to sort of have the bravery to defy that label that you 3 albums or 4 albums ago thought you might have been pigeonholing yourself into, that has to pose some challenges for you, but I'm glad you guys took the risk. yeah, it's like just in the age of Spotify where everything is defined by what you type into a search bar. I'm glad there are bands out there that are able to bridge a gap and, you know, bring in people from maybe like you have some kind of folk sensibilities on this album. You might pull some fans in from that. You're doing things just more stripped back. You know, you just never know who you're going to be able to speak to with an album like that. I do have one question that I realize I should have asked way at the start, but where did the name The Tea Club come from?
I knew you were going to ask that.
And do you guys even like tea?
All right. All right. So
really, can I answer the tea question first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't like tea. I drink so much coffee.
Coffee.
I think we're more of a coffee club than a tea club.
It's true.
I'm like a midday. I'm like a midday cup of tea guy, but
yeah,
I need coffee to launch it. That's for sure.
I like green tea. It's probably my favorite.
Way to go,
but I don't drink it that much.
And I like a little cup of espresso with a little sambuca in it. Oh,
that's a heavy drink.
So the name of the Tea Club. Here's what I'm going to say, Kelly. Okay. I'm going to tell you two things. So when we first joined, when we first started the band, and whenever anybody would ask us what the name meant or where it came from, we had a pact that we had made within the band that we would make up something completely ridiculous on the spot. We did that for a while. We did that for years. And then I just got too old and too lazy to do it. So, but
tell her, Pat. Tell her.
I'm not. So here's what
I don't want you to break your secret pact. I'm not going to break this interview. So,
but I'm not going to. I'm going to send you on a for anyone who is silly enough to go on this wild goose chase. Here's what I'll say. If you want to try to discover where the name of the Tea Club comes from, there was a movie that came out. I believe it was this year.
Yeah. That
when it came out, I was kind of horrified because I thought, oh no, this deep secret that I thought that I was the only person in the world that knew about. This is me being the narcissist. But this was the secret that I thought I was the only one who knew about. There's a movie that has come out and it plays a fairly prominent role in it. And everyone's going to know.
Sorry to interrupt you. That's where the album title "If When" comes from, because this movie came out and Pat was thinking if it gets revealed when. He's really worried about it.
Yeah, a lot of
that's really the main thing.
Now here's the thing, Kelly. I'm not going to tell you what the movie is, but I am going to tell you that it came out in 2019, and I am going to tell you that it is based on a true story.
I've only seen one movie in 2019 that fits that bill.
John Wick 3.
No, it was that one about where Steve Carell plays the soldier with PTSD, and he builds the little dioramas with the soldier. Welcome to Marwin, I think. So
it's not that. I can tell you it's not that. Yeah, it's not that.
Well, now you can try to assemble your listeners to try and figure it out for you, right?
Yeah. I'm just going to have a Tapestry street team. Okay, I need all my film watching friends to find out for me why the Tea Club is called the Tea Club. I was just curious, so but I figure you get asked that constantly. So thank you for giving me a satisfying answer, because now you're right. It just makes me now need to send other people to do my dirty work to find it out.
You're just gonna be all right. We're done this interview. Will somebody find out what the hell Pat's talking about?
No. I was actually This will kind of bring it to a different topic, but so I guess I have to mention this first. I kind of had this interview all set up and connected through. I want to give a shout out to Andrew Nichols from the Images and Words Discord group, and I've mentioned that I've mentioned that on so many interviews now, but it really has become such a supportive community for me and for artists like you guys. So thank you to him for getting this all set up. But
Andrew's been so fantastic and helped us market everything we've been doing over the last, I'd say, 2-ish years. He's kind of been our on the ground, street team type of person. Yeah. And Yeah, if you're listening, Andrew, thank you so much for what
Lots
you're
of
doing.
good ideas.
And he always gives me great music recommendations, and I try to do the same. So I actually was going to ask about that, because I kind of am like that with some bands that I'm a huge fan of, where it actually made me think of your story, Joe, how you joined the band. You're like living the dream. You're like, oh my God, I love this band. And then you're in it. There's a couple bands I wish I could do that with if I was anywhere near proficient enough on an instrument to join that band. But I forget, did he kind of stumble across you guys just as a fan, and then you sort of said, sure, we'll take the help?
Okay, so I think back in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, the T Club played a show with Beardfish at the Magic.
Oh, that says everything. I know he loves Beardfish.
Okay, and I think it was that show that he found us, and ever since he's been a really big fan and really supportive.
That's awesome. I love hearing stories like that, just because I kind of am that person, and so it's hard to say it without sounding like, oh, I'm doing it because I want the band to notice me, or I want this person to notice me, or reap this praise. But sometimes there's just music out there that just is like, oh, this was written for me. Now I have to proselytize everybody I know.
No, that was, I'll be honest, that was me when I first found the band. I was annoying about it. I told all my friends about the T Club, and then I eventually joined after, messaging them over and over again. But hey, it paid off for me, so you never know.
Right, that's exactly, and I encourage
really
anybody
paid off for
out
Joe.
there
Now
to
he's
do
making
that.
the big bucks. And
Oh yeah, those big prog rock dollars.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually thanks to Andrew that I correct me if I'm wrong. He was the one that told me also about the little side project some of you guys are in, Afterform. That is what, you, Joe, and isn't it also Pat and Jamie? Or no, I'm getting that wrong.
Well, Afterform is so Afterform is this little project I had an idea for around last year time. Where I've always wanted to make video game music, because I love video games, but I'm also a really big fan of like artists like Disaster Piece and C4118, and I was also really into ambient music for a while when I was in college, and I just really wanted to do some electronic music, because it was around the time when If When was being tracked, and there were long periods of time where we weren't really doing much other than working on the new record. And so over the course of a few months, I started making some demos of this video game type music, and started sending these ideas to Dan McGowan. And don't want to talk about this too long, but essentially we just, over the next few months, put together a record of music within a certain theme, which is like kind of like this 90s retro sci-fi kind of sound, and created this record called Talcon Industries. Pat was involved on that as well. And we kind of view this Afterform thing to be something that we're not really pushing right now, but will be using as a vehicle for us in the future to do other sorts of music within like an electronic sphere, or trying to maybe market it towards a publishing company to do for film or games. And so it's not, it's a project that we're taking seriously, but it's more of an extra outlet to experiment and put out music semi-secretly as T Club. But it's an extra little project that we're definitely going to be doing more of in the future.
That makes me happy to hear, because once he introduced it to me, I'm a big video game music lover, and I have been listening to it a ton.
That's cool, right?
Listening,
I was
listening to it at the gym the other day. It's great work music. It's just great everything music. It's just really catchy. So
it was just one of these things where I was bored. Dan had a ton. What you have to understand is Dan McGowan, who did a good amount of the writing on it, along with me and Pat, but he did a lot of the writing, especially the demoing. And because he's had all these keyboard demos on this old Yamaha keyboard from the 90s that he's had just sitting in his archives for like the last 10 years, that he already has all these ideas. And so he'd send them to me, and I would add my melody and I add my harmony, maybe just some of the percussion, and then put them into a real DAW and construct these songs. And a lot of the seeds of the Talcott Industries record came from these little keyboard demos that Pat and Dan had been sending to me, in addition to some of the songs that I had created on my own. But it's just one of these happy accidents where we just started to create ideas, and voila, we had a record after a few months of just having fun.
It was pretty easy too, right, Joe? It was easy. Like, I remember Dan would just be like, "Here, I just wrote something new," and it took me an hour.
The hardest part of the entire process of the record was mixing, because the writing was blazingly easy, but we had a ton of content. And so getting it, and I had never mixed a record. This is the first time I'd ever sat down and actually gone through the whole process of tracking, mixing a record. So I'd never done it before, so that was the most challenging part of making that. But the writing was really quick. And so, and then I just want to give a shout out to the guy who mastered it. You might have heard of this band. He's a member of another band called Battle Stations, and they're more like
I feel like I have, yeah.
Yeah, so he's a part of this group of guys over in Europe called Battle Stations, and he helped us master that, and we think he did a fantastic job. Anyway.
Such a small world. Yeah, I didn't want to derail too much, but actually I realized the reason I brought up Andrew and images and words and stuff, and then him later showing me Afterform, was one of the moderators of that group theorized, or kind of jokingly theorized, that you guys named one of the songs on If When Say Yes after what was it? I just watched it today on my lunch break. It was this British comedy sketch about a guy who has to do a voiceover, and he gets the script, and it's literally just yes, and then they keep asking him to rehearse it. Like, they're like, all right, with more feeling this time. And he's like, yes! And he just starts screaming, and he keeps getting it wrong, and it's hilarious. So one of the moderators seemed to think that that's where you got that song title from. I really hope it's true, but...
well, I'll just go out on the officially on the record and say that that's absolutely 100% true. So it's not. I'm kidding.
Say no. It's not. Thinking of a way to combine everything we just talked about, I have to say, Pat, I know it was you who filled it out for me, but I'm guessing you got consensus from the band. But you guys have you have the largest list of influences I've ever been sent, and I love it because it is everything. It's like video game soundtracks, Stravinsky, Radiohead, King Crimson. It's like 89 different genres, and I love it.
Cool. I spent I'm not gonna lie, I was up till 2:00 in the morning working on that, and I spent 2 hours working on that list because I was trying to cover everybody's. I got some stuff that I really love, and then I was trying to get some stuff that Dan Monda loved, and some stuff that
what did I love? What you put up for me, dude?
I was gonna put Tool, but I didn't. Dan,
did you put if I speak that though, right?
I put Soundgarden in there for you.
If I speak quickly enough, I can read off the entire list, and it's my show, so I'm gonna do it.
Does he have Beatles on there?
Huh?
Do you have Beatles?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, this is the full comprehensive list of musical influences for the Tea Club. Includes King Crimson, Radiohead, Nick Drake, Soundgarden, Jimi Hendrix, Fleet Foxes, Yes, The Flaming Lips. I never know how to pronounce this guy's name. Oniotrix Point Never.
Yeah.
However the hell you say that. Aphex Twin, Gustav Holst, Miles Davis, The Beatles, Genesis, Sunny Day Real Estate, Koji Kondo, Esperanza Spalding, The Mars Volta, Tyonde Braxton, Grant Kirkhope, Igor Stravinsky, David Bowie, Gentle Giant, Tame Impala, Sonic Youth, And You Will Know Us by the Trail of the Dead, Bjork, PFM, Cardiacs, Shelby Bryant, Death Grips, Magma, Disaster Piece, The Beach Boys, Nobuo Uematsu, Eric Satie, Jaga Jazzist. I freaking love Jaga Jazzist.
Yes,
Neil Young, Jeff Buckley, Pink Floyd, Vandergraaf Generator, Tangerine Dream, Tom Waits, Secret Chiefs 3, Tim and Jeff Fallen, and Kaiichi Suzuki. The end.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, not
bad.
You can throw
You've got
KO
some really
in there,
important
too.
ones, but you did good.
Yeah, and then watch you guys just start the infighting. You didn't have my favorite band on there.
Solid people.
No, you did good, Pat. I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
I suppose that's actually a really good way to probably start to trail this interview down. But if anyone has listened to my previous interviews, you probably know what I'm going to ask. And this is going to be difficult with 4 of you, but I tend to ask what are 3 albums that each of you couldn't live without. Like if you could only listen to those 3 the rest of your life, what would they be?
All right, you call it the names. We'll go. You say what band member.
Oh, who do I put on the spot first?
Fucking hard.
Dan Monda, you've been last this whole time, so I'm going to make you go first
Ooh,
for the hardest
Good
question.
job.
Now we're talking. 3 albums. Well, I'm gonna do Super Unknown by Soundgarden.
Good album.
That's a good one. I like that album. Wow, this sucks.
Yeah.
Can I be the tool that says "Okay, computer"? Or is that all right?
You're
Dude,
taking mine, dude.
Beautiful
Dude,
album.
it's mine,
Beautiful album. Beautiful album.
Then I got one more, right? I have one more.
You get one more.
What was
90s
my
boy.
first one? I'm kidding. All right, I'm
Soundgarden.
not gonna do
Super
a
Unknown.
Megadeth one. Megadeth is number 4 though. All right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I have 4. Rust in peace, but Megadeth. No. Great album, guys. Come on. I might just say it. Close to the Edge. Yes.
Yeah,
Damn it, you
Oh,
took mine.
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Close to the Edge, like Relayer.
Oh, I was recommended Relayer so many times. I
Oh.
just need to get immersed in it still.
Yeah, take that one.
Still working on me. How about Jamie?
All right, because Dan Monda had to take all of them.
It's
No.
because we're in the same room.
Yeah, let's think about this. Pat, I'm sorry, I'm gonna steal Red.
You're going to
Because you were
steal
thinking-
all of mine, aren't you?
Ah,
Oh, by,
dude.
by King Crimson?
Okay. Let's see. What do I really keep coming back to in life?
Yeah.
Under the Table Dreaming, dude.
Under the Table and Dreaming by Dave Matthews, 1996. Just kidding.
Great album, man.
No, I don't. Before These Crowded Streets, maybe.
That's a good one.
No. Honestly, let's see. Favorite albums in life. Maybe to stick with a color, Blue by Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Does that one have Jocko on it?
No.
Which one's that Jocko?
That's the one after, I think after that. Damn, I was ready to say OK Computer too.
You can still say it.
I mean, yeah, you can still say it. I've definitely had duplicates over the course of interviews, let alone multiples.
Honestly, I'm gonna go back to high school, Jamie, and I'm gonna put Dark Side on there
Yeah, dude.
because, yeah, I mean, it's
Beautiful album.
It's beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it will forever be about life in the modern world and very relatable.
Mm.
Pat, you seem eager to comment, so
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna choose
Always.
you.
Well, my favorite rock album of all time is Relayer.
Wow. Okay.
I
Relayer
mean,
by Yes.
I just love that record, up and down. Love it. I would put The Planets Suite by Gustav Holst.
Heck
That's-
yes.
That's like, yeah. That's
What
one of
is
my-
your favorite? What is your favorite piece?
Oh,
I know.
And why?
Yeah.
And why is it Jupiter?
it's not
Oh,
Jupiter.
no.
I love Jupiter.
I know that's
You know
like
which
the
one it
overrated
is.
one.
You know which one it is,
Yeah.
Pat.
Of course. Well, I mean, it's one of my favorite pieces of music ever written, and my favorite is Saturn.
Underrated.
Totally underrated, and it's funny. I like for the as we were writing If When, I had one of the pieces of music that didn't make it to the album was this weird guitar instrumental thing that I had written that I was just trying to copy Saturn. I was just trying to mimic it. We even like the working title for it is Saturn. But
Oh, that's awesome. My high school band nerd is just leaping with joy at that because that piece I've played it so many times on so
Yeah.
many different instruments and it
My-
always moves me.
my wife Jen, shout out to Jen. Jen is awesome, and Finn, my soon-to-be 3-year-old son. she took me to a performance of the Planets early this year for Valentine's Day. It doesn't get played a lot in the States, it seems.
Really?
I had been looking for it for a few years. The Philadelphia Orchestra played it a few years ago, but I missed it. But the Buffalo Philharmonic played it this year, so we drove up there, and I got to see them play the whole suite, and it was just like there were like orbs of light emanating in the room. It was awesome. So
that sounds divine.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was great. That's definitely one of my that's up there. So it would be Relayer, it would be the Planet Suite by Gustav Holst, and then I have no problem putting a incredibly popular album on, but it would have to be In the Court of the Crimson King, the first Crimson record. King Crimson is my favorite band, although Relayer is my favorite album, interestingly. But King Crimson is my favorite band. I love everything that they've ever done. But that album is it just comes from another planet, and there's the planets. And I listen to it, and it kind of takes me through the whole range of emotions. You know, I get pumped, you know, for Schizoid Man, and then I'm like weeping by the end of Epitaph, and it's like 1969, you know, just such a beautiful. They just captured something very, very special on that album. I think
about how many people still list that album as an influence, or like what got them into making unusual progressive music. It's timeless.
It should be, you know. I'm glad that people love that album. You know, I'm glad that it didn't get just sort of. It's just kind of it's cute. It's, you know, like late '60s kind of cute psychedelic thing. You know, I'm glad that it seems to have really endured, because I think it deserves it.
Well,
great cover.
Fripp is smiling on you.
Yeah.
Joe, that leaves
Call me up,
you.
baby.
Oh boy, this is such a hard question for me, because I could give you like 20, but if I had to limit it down to 3, really my top 20 are interchangeable. I think I'd have to just pick 3 at random. I gotta say, Colors by Between the Buried and Me is one of those albums that
Can I just say that is now the 7th. You are now the 7th person to answer that in 27 episodes.
Really?
There must be something about that album. It's across the board.
It's an album that I never liked metal until for a long time. Like, I just thought I just did not get into metal. And then I started getting into Opeth through their proggier stuff when I was in high school. And then I saw Opeth and Dream Theater live with the
Progressive Nation tour, dude. I was in the
yeah.
was on that tour too, I think.
And I remember, I remember hating them live. Right? I just remember I was like, I just didn't get it. It was too aggressive. I didn't like the vocals. But the more and more I just picked up that record, and the more and more I listened to it, I just fell in love with it, and they became a huge influence on my band back in college. So I got to give that album a shout out. Then probably Talk's Spirit of Eden is one of these records that it's just one of my favorites of all time. It's an extremely emotional record, very dynamic, and the songwriting on it is amazing. Funny story behind that record too is like the whole thing was recorded in the basement of a church. Like, it has there's a whole weird mythos around that record that I recommend you look up before you listen to it. And then a third record, probably there's a band called Keodot. Brooklyn. Yeah. So their album Choirs of the Eye is another one of those albums that I just, it's like, looking back on it now, it's probably not an album I would be as into now, but it's, again, just one of those albums that has one of those emotional ties to when I was growing up and first discovering some obscure music. And it's another one of those records that I just love every song on, and I just don't think I could go without.
Do we play with Keodot, or we just play with Toby Driver, right?
Toby Driver, I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah. at St. Vitus back in 16. Was that 16?
Oh, yeah, with Bentley.
It was Bentley and Toby Driver, yeah.
I know Dan McGowan's top 3 albums. I can tell you those too. If you want.
Oh boy, here we go.
Let's hear it for Dan.
Okay. I think for Dan, probably like Saint Anger, Metallica is definitely in there.
Yep.
Let Go, Avril Lavigne, and then what's that one album Arguing
Roach.
with Myself, that Jeff Dunham album. That one. That's like. I actually think that album is stuck in his CD player in his car, right? You can only listen to that in his car.
It's
He's
timeless.
Big Jeff Dunham.
Punch
timeless.
it to get it out. That's why, I interviewed Cryptodira, and I felt, so hilarious about it, because the only person who could come to the interview was their singer and their guitarist, and I was like, so this means that you get to tell me all the wrong opinions about the rest of your band.
Right.
Like, you're now the lone wolf, you can say anything you want, how much they suck, that's just how it is. Well, I'm sure
Well,
Dan
that's the opposite
appreciates
of what
it.
I just did. What I just said.
That's the
true. Yeah.
honest truth.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's quite a spread for all of you guys, actually, but thank you for answering my difficult question. It's just become my MO now. So
That's
no matter
great
how
question.
no matter how much it pisses people off, I have to ask them it, because it's so entertaining to me. So
What are your top 3 favorite
Ooh,
albums?
good one, Dan.
I now have it down pat, and I totally embarrassed myself when I was on another friend's podcast, and I can redeem myself because I completely blanked on the name. But my top 3 would be Fortress by Protest the Hero.
Yeah.
Speak for Yourself by Imogen Heap, and On Letting Go by Circa Survive.
Oh,
Wow.
cool.
Those are my 3.
That's a cool top 3.
This is
I
good
figured
record.
that really covers all the 3 main genres that really hit home for me.
You would really like Colors then.
I have gone back and listened to it. It's not my favorite BT Bam album. That distinction definitely, like, miles and above, belongs to Coma Ecliptic. That's my favorite, hands down.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
Okay.
I was afraid of Colors. Like, I did not like Between the Buried and Me, because that was the album I started with, and I'm just like, this is
interesting.
just so violent and weird, and that was like at a time where I didn't appreciate harsh vocals. I didn't like screams, ew.
Mhm.
And then now I do them and enjoy them. So it was a slow grower for me, but yeah, I can appreciate that album.
For me, my gateway into them was the album after that, which was
Great Misdirect.
Great Misdirect, which
Yeah.
I that's how I got into them, because I liked Opeth already. I tried listening to Colors, and it was way too violently aggressive, but then I kind of found that next record, Great Misdirect, and I fell in love with it. And then I went back and listened to Colors, and really fell in love with that one too.
Man, dude, when Colors came out, they were my favorite band on earth at that time. That live DVD is so fucking good.
I missed that tour too. It was 2015 would have been or 2016, whenever the 10-year anniversary was, and I was like, should I go? Like, maybe I'll get a greater appreciation for Colors if I go see it live, but the moment's gone, so I'll just wait. I'll just wait for 2025 when the 10-year Coma Ecliptic tour comes out, so then I won't miss my chance. But
Definitely
guys,
will.
do you guys have any other questions for me, or any other things you want to get out there before we shut this thing down?
I just want to shout out all the guys on Discord, Quintess and Andrew. I think that's his.
Quintessence, which that is named.
Mm-hmm.
His handle is definitely based on the Mastodon song Believe. He's a huge Mastodon fan.
I was also shouting out Tuck on Discord.
Tuck is stellar. Everybody needs to go listen to his little project, which is called Bigger On. It's very video gamey, keyboardy, heavy.
Yes. So he's also a keyboard player, and he does some fantastic video game music. And so I just want to give him an extra shout out too. The Discord's been fantastic. I love going on there.
Yeah, please come hang out more. I am making so many cool friends in there. I try to tell everybody about it, and in general, I'll leave a link in my comments and stuff once I put this episode up. But in general, if you need a big new wide open place to geek out about mostly progressive music, but a lot of other stuff with a bunch of people, come join us. It's a lot of fun. That's how I got this interview set up, and we're happy to have you guys there, and just kind of, I don't know, it's a nice way to advocate for bands that people might not know, and it's a very organic kind of way to discover new music. So
I've never been on Discord. I didn't know that's what it was. I thought it was like the dark web for some reason. I thought I would go there to sell like people's social security numbers and shit.
I don't know how old you guys are, but like I'll be 29 soon, and so like to me Discord is perfect as a 90s kid because it feels exactly like that same sense of when you come home from middle school every day and immediately log on to AIM and go chat with all your buddies. That's what Discord feels like to me. It's just the 2019 version with like stupid emojis and
chat rooms, man.
Yeah, it's fun. It's just fun. It's a great way to just geek a little bit.
Well, so it's not like the dark web.
No.
No, Dan.
No.
I'm 36 and terribly non-technological. And when Andrew was explaining to me what it was, I was like, dude, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like what is this? What is the internet? I couldn't.
What is it?
I could not. I had no. What is a Discord? Like I had no idea what it was. And when I was, we had the pleasure of doing a listening party on your on it, whatever it's called.
Discord.
The internet thingy.
As on those tubes. It's a series of tubes, right?
Yes.
As I was like downloading, I was downloading the app on my phone, and I'm pretty sure at one point I couldn't figure it out, and I'm almost certain that the word "newfangled" came out as I was like, "These newfangled technologies." I was lost.
Gotta turn the text size up to extra large.
Yeah, I was almost going to call Joe and be like, Joe, how do I? Because don't I this like Joe probably gets at least one call from me a month asking like, Joe, how do I use technology? Because I just have no idea.
Joe, how do I get a Skype?
Yeah. Joe got here early to help us with this.
You guys managed to do it. I have to say, I did say about an hour and 20 minutes ago that I was like, this might end up being a shit show because there's 4 people here and you're all on Skype and you're all in a different room. But I think this went perfectly, and as long as nothing, screws up on my end, we should be all good to go. But
well, I have this whole conversation memorized, so we can just do it again if you want.
Perfect. It's great. No, I've really enjoyed talking with you guys, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will
awesome.
spread everything around. Congratulations on putting out another fantastic record, and
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for being on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Who's your next interview? Who are you interviewing next?
I actually don't have anybody scheduled. I have a couple people in mind, but I need to work through my backlog. I need to get the Thank You Scientists interview out, and I actually did also interview Moontooth. So those are the two
awesome! Those guys are
that
awesome.
I'm sitting on.
Great.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
That tour you guys did with them too. That was my first introduction to them, and I've now seen them I think 6 times live.
yeah.
So
Their new album is so good.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to just throw this out there. I was thinking about this. I saw this really interesting video from Brian Eno a couple days ago, where he's talking about having an artistic community, and he was talking about how we sort of in history, I guess, we kind of zero in on certain individuals, like Rembrandt or Mozart or whatever, and sort of, seeing them as sort of like these pioneers, and they were genius, and they brought all these things to the table, and, all that's true. But he was talking about this idea that, that those people, were influenced and experimenting and informed and informing, oftentimes, within a, creative, artistic community, that it wasn't like they were just sort of off on their own little island, and I mean, I'm sure that's happened, but in general, there's this idea that he was touching on that I thought was really interesting. And, you have these bands and these artists and musicians that, get a lot of credit for stuff, and, I'm sure that they deserve all of it. but there is, it's really, I think, wise to not overlook the creative community that those things come from, and there's probably a lot of really brilliant people who we don't know yet, that like had a lot to do with, what was going on at the time. And he had sort of advice of like, be a part of that community. Don't, seek that out. And so as you're talking about Moontooth, you're talking about Thank You Scientist, and I'm kind of seeing, these people as like this really rich, talented, artistic and musical community that we are kind of privileged and sort of blessed enough to be a part of, and that's happening. And I think, the things like the Discord and whatever that is, and and stuff like that like helps to really bring that to the forefront, that there's a lot of really talented people doing a lot of really great things. And some of them are like doing it together, in these areas. Yeah. And it's a really interesting thing. And I'm really grateful for it. And I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to just put a little highlight on that aspect of, being artistic, being in a band, and creating.
That's a fantastic perspective, and I appreciate you putting it out there. I mean, even in a small way, my podcast is that too. That's
Absolutely.
Why it started. It's just like, well, I'm not in a band. I'm really good at being passionate about bands. This is my way of giving back, that sort of thing. And
well, I mean, you've interviewed us. You've interviewed. You said, some of the people I was even thinking of. So you're absolutely a part of that. Creative community.
It's just like everybody kind of has their place, and I think now, I mean, I go to a ton of shows. It's really important for me to get that FaceTime and network with people and be able to sort of interface and see, sort of strip back the facade of like, ooh, these people are in this band that's just so much bigger than me. When you realize, okay, but I just talked to them on the internet like 3 days ago, and they sent me merch in the mail yesterday. It really removes that ego that is over the course of time and history given to people like Rembrandt or Da Vinci or Da Vinci or whatever. It removes it entirely, and I think that's very important.
Yeah, super.
Yeah, I mean, I just to keep going and be annoying, what I love meeting people after shows. I love spending time with people and talking to them. If there are people who are like enjoying what we're doing, I bend over backwards to make time for them. And I get messages from emails. We get from people, and like just let it be known. I am oftentimes overcome with emotion by it, like somebody will send me an email or something, or even some of these reviews that people have been writing about us, I'll tear up, like it's having that connection and that relationship with the people who are listening to what we're doing and appreciating it and enjoying it and being moved or touched by it in any way. Like that's a two-way street. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that gives me warm fuzzies. It really does.
Good. I'm all about warm fuzzies, Kelly. I love me some warm fuzzies. Let's do it.
Fuzzies.
Well, you guys have given me some warm fuzzies on this wonderful Friday night, and hopefully I haven't cut into your rehearsal time too much. So
I mean, you like totally did, but it's worth it.
It was mostly Pat's fault.
Probably, probably a welcome break. So, well, again, thank you guys for being on the show.
This was great.
All right, everybody, that puts a wrap on episode 27, and I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with the Tea Club. Another thing I did, and I did this back in the episode with A Notion of Silence too, because I take so damn long to edit these episodes, a lot of times whenever the band brings up a tour announcement that they couldn't previously announce, by the time I get around to editing it, I can. So, if you are on the East Coast, and I think it's actually going all over the place as well, the Tea Club is on a complete banger of a tour this fall and December. They are touring with Bent Knee and Thank You Scientist, so that'll be 2/3 of a Tapestry alumni on tour. But seriously, all three of those bands together, that is going to be a wild show. So go out and catch them on tour if you can. It has since been announced. You can check the dates on their Facebook page or any one of their other social media accounts. The Tea Club has its own website at thetclub.net. They are on Instagram as the Tea Club Band, and they actually have a Patreon account, which is patreon.com/the Tea Club, so you can go support them and check out their other goodies there. As always, thanks for listening.